So it's time for another gardening week, and at this time of year you really need to sort of celebrate the small successes because there's not that much gardening going on. But I'm pleased to say that these little carrots have started to germinate in here. These are the ones we're going to be eating in early summer. It's a pretty important sowing for me, otherwise I would be without carrots in that sort of period, late May, well mid-May probably to sort of mid-June. There's quite a lot of weeds coming up as well, which I need to take out, but you know, generally speaking, it's looking moderately good in terms of germination. So yeah, pretty happy with that. I think within a week or two that all of those should be up. They are pretty slow at this time of year. And I am starting potting on. I like potting on. I think I don't really like sowing seeds very much, but I do like potting on because you kind of take a plant that's looking pretty sorry for itself and turn it into a really nice kind of stocky, healthy looking plant. I really like that process, and I'll take you through that in a few minutes time. And the broad beans behind me, they're outside. Those have germinated as well. I'm going to leave them outside because it's still too hot in the polytunnel. They'll just grow really leggy. So I don't really want to move them into the polytunnel until it starts getting cold. Then the growth will be slow, light levels will be slow, and they won't go too huge. And yeah, the only other thing going on in the polytunnel is those hanging baskets over there they're full of lettuces. The lettuces we're going to be harvesting in winter are foul weather reserve really, because obviously we've got loads of lettuce in here. But when we don't want to come down to the polytunnel to harvest, we want some lettuces back home, and they're going to go in the greenhouse, and I'll show you those later. So I'm going to start off with red cabbage, and these modules could do with a little bit more water, but they'll survive. So hopefully you can see here, these plants are very weak, floppy, because it's been pretty hot in this polytunnel. And so I'm going to take off all of those lower leaves there and bury the stem down to this point, maybe even that point. Maybe I'll take that one off as well, which means I don't want any compost in the module. So I just drop that in there, and then we'll bury the whole thing. You don't have to be particularly gentle with them either, especially at this time of year, because there's no sunshine in my future, not for quite a few days, maybe even weeks now. So they'll settle in really nicely. And I just love this process, you know, taking that weak and feeble little plant and turning it into that lovely stocky little plant there that's going to really thrive, and it's going to be really big by the time we plant it out, because we won't be planting these out until late February, early March probably, under fleece. So they're going to be this sort of size and, you know, pretty well established plants by that time. So, you know, one of the things that I really love about red cabbage is, you know, you get a huge amount for your money because of such tightly compressed heads. They're super healthy, and we seem to get a lot less pest issues with them, particularly slugs and snails. Obviously you're always going to get some slugs and snails, but you know, generally speaking, I find I get less with red cabbage than I do with a looser leafed cabbage. And, you know, that makes me happy. You can bury the leaves. You don't have to take the leaves off. You know, they're quite happy for the leaves to sort of decompose in the compost. Just as long as you don't bury the growing tip, they're going to be fine. And 2 batches of these Graffiti cauliflowers. These are the ones we did on the 15th of September, and they're looking really healthy at the moment. I've never tried these before, but I really like these. These are the purple beautiful purple cauliflowers. They seem to do really well early on in the season, so they're a great cauliflower for an early summer harvest. I want to see if I can get them in May. I'll probably put them in the polytunnel in the lettuce beds as we start to get too much lettuce, and give them as much TLC as I can. And I'm really excited to see whether I can get a harvest from them. No mention of the ability to overwinter them on the seed packets, but that's never deterred me in the past. And then next on my list are these Orkney cauliflowers. All of these, by the way, were started 15th of September, and then I've just got a batch of early Brussels sprouts. I can't pot any more on because I've run out of these pots. I'll need to get some from home. And I've got another succession which are on the way, and most of those are looking pretty good. I'll just show you those now. So I've got some more Orkney, I've got some Calabrese Marathon, more Graffiti at the back there, and more little cabbages, red drumhead cabbages there. And you can see some of the leaves have been scorched because it's been a little bit too hot and cold for them. I'm not exactly sure what causes this scorching, but it just seems to be unfavourable weather conditions anyway, let's put it that way. So they will grow through that though, no problem at all. But I'm not sure, you know, which of these successions, these are the 25th or the 9th, I'm not sure which of them will do the best, so we'll just have to see. It does depend a lot on the weather. You know, a big plant like this is going to weather a really cold snap a little bit better than a little plant like this. But once they've grown on a bit, they'll be fine. And right now, there's no sign of any frosts for the next 10 days or so. So, yeah, I think they're going to pull through. I could always take them home and put them in the greenhouse if not. So there's the wild rocket that I potted on 2 weeks ago, and that has just really thrived since it was potted on. And then here's the red cabbages, 12 of those, and the Graffiti cauliflowers that I've just done. And I've given them a light watering. You don't want to give them too much water at this time of year because, you know, they're not going to take up much water from the soil, so it just means they're going to be sitting in really soggy soil for weeks and weeks on end. So just nice damp compost is fine. So I don't normally work at night, but making an exception today because I'm just a bit behind. I've got all these things to prick out, and these lettuces, some of which are going to be potted on into big trays and grown on in the greenhouse, and some of them are going to be planted out on the allotment in a coal frame. So yeah, let's get on with this. So I'm starting off with these. I'm just putting a bit of multi-purpose compost in, and actually using Erin is the brand name. And you can see I just drilled a few holes. These are just washing up bowls I got off Amazon. I think they'll be perfect. Compost is quite moist actually, which is good because I don't want to water it too much. So I'm just going to I'm putting 5 in. We'll see how they get on. I think it's a bit of a squeeze really, trying to get 5 in here, but anyway, that's what I'm going to try and do. And so the hope is that these are going to be ready in December when I'm a bit short of lettuce, and I'll do a few successions of these because I've got a few of these bowls. So this is just the first batch, and some of the ones that I'm pricking out will be part of the second batch. Yeah, they look alright. So as per usual, I'm using these containerised trays, the ones with the really big holes, and I'm going to use again this multi-purpose compost. It's a little bit rough, but it's way cheaper than the seed starting compost, and so as soon as I've got something germinated in my professional seed starting compost, I'm switching to just multi-purpose compost to grow things in. So these were grown in that multi-purpose compost, and they are only 25 days old, so I've done okay. The only downside with multi-purpose compost is you don't really want to be using your fingers, because you can easily kind of get a bit of wood stuck or something like that in when you're making the holes. It's okay when you're just squashing it down. But you can probably see how rough it is, and you know, obviously you could sieve it, but that's something that basically I never do. I'm too 80-20 for that. So what I've got here, I've got all these are lettuce, and I've got Navara, flashy butter oak, of which only 3 germinated, so I'm hoping I've got another packet of those. Riccia and Canasta, so these are all big favourites of mine for spring, because obviously I've got all my winter lettuces already in the ground and growing well. And I've got parsley for spring. I've never actually tried doing parsley at this time, but what I find is I always have a bit of a gap, so the parsley that's currently in the polytunnel will keep going until spring, and then I generally sort of start my next batch of parsley in sort of February time, and because it's not ready by the time that other parsley is going to seed, so we then have to switch over to dried parsley, which is fine for some things, but it's not great in a salad. So yeah, so I'm trying that, and hopefully such a late sowing, 16th of October, the plants will be young enough that they don't go to seed on me. We'll see. So the lettuces are going to go in this tray, and then the other stuff will go in bigger trays because it's going to be in them for longer. The lettuce is only going to be in these trays for, you know, no more than 25 days. Well, I was hoping I'd have a few more of those, but obviously I was a bit stingy when I was sowing these, so I'm going to have to fill in all the gaps with Canasta. And I really hate this if I run out and I've got a space in the tray. I'm so OCD about things like that. I end up planting these really tiny little seedlings and just hope they manage to survive. Yeah, I've got a gap. Oh, so frustrating when the labels don't work either, but I can kind of guess what everything is. So, oh, there's another one just germinating there. Might be able to just pop that in. Looks like a better candidate. Right. Oh, thank goodness for that. Managed to get everything planted. Right, so next up is the calabrese. And I put it in one of these cells. It'll last in these cells for quite a long time, but it will need potting on at some point. In fact, well, as you've probably seen in this video, I've been pricking out, potting on from these trays. Lots of cauliflowers and things. Calabrese is faster growing than cauliflower, so I tend to do quite a few successions of calabrese over winter. Then I just plant out the healthiest looking ones. Sometimes I'll plant out all of them, but I only prick out 6 of these because I only need 6 at a time. I don't have enough space for any more. And you can see these have ridiculously long stems, which means I'm going to have to bend the stems. But that's kind of what happens when you've got low light levels. But it's okay. I just bend the stems. Right, there we go. I need 5 of those 6 to live. Pretty confident. And then it's kind of the same with this parsley. I don't really want to be potting it on again, so I think, yeah, actually I won't. I will put it in one of these 10 cells. Parsley is one of those things that does really well in a polytunnel over winter, and it often lives outside, but it doesn't grow very much, so that's the difference a polytunnel makes. It means you can keep on harvesting it. There we go. I've probably shown it before, but this is where I do my potting on my workshop bench, and I use this little grow light, which I mainly use for sort of, a really bright work light, but as an emergency I can use it as a grow light as well. And then underneath there I've got my multi-purpose compost, and at the back of it is my seed starting compost, and then I store my compost tray underneath there. Essentially, because I'm a neat freak, I've got my own little vacuum cleaner in here, and then this is where I put everything sort of while I'm working. So I've got these little benches, which are actually the grandkids' little work benches, but I use them when they're not here. And then here, soon to go in the greenhouse actually, I've got all of my seed trays. So although this is a workshop, it's also a pretty good little potting area. Just all these in, and with these in particular, you really don't want to give them too much water, because there's no way that these little tiny plants can take all the water out of a really well wetted tray. So you just want the surrounding area sort of here just slightly damp to draw the roots out. But Yeah, it's only when these are really sort of actively growing that you can start watering the sort of whole tray properly, and everything else obviously is just given a little bit of a trickle with this little water spout here. My garden looks quite nice at night because I've got quite a lot of light in, so it was quite nice actually doing a bit of work. And these seedlings are the first things to go into the greenhouse. Well, actually those hanging baskets were the first things, so they're all up there on the shelf. The shelf is pretty high actually, so that's almost at my eye level, so I'll have to get myself a little stool, but I couldn't have it actually any lower because of that support there. So it'll probably work out well, because in the end obviously I'm going to have a big trestle table here, and it gives me good clearance on this trestle table to have things growing that are pretty high. So yeah, all done. So this is my old onion bed. I've taken quite a lot of spinach off this bed so far, and now this is an autumn spinach. It's starting to lose its vigour, so I'm just going to take out the last little bit of it, and then I'm going to get lettuces planted in here for spring. This bed is suffering a bit from slugs, and I've got quite a few losses. Some of the lettuces sort of down there, to be honest, none of them have completely died, but you know, some of them aren't looking very healthy, so I might have to cut my losses on a few of those and get them replaced. That's kind of, you know, partly the issue that we've got right now, because it's quite mild, so the slugs haven't sort of gone into hibernation yet. So anyway, I'll get this cleared. Short of things to plant, so I think I'm going to tidy up these tatsoi that were kind of badly eaten and see if I can get those looking reasonable. So those are looking a bit better, I think. So I've got these planted in the rain, tatsoi and various lettuces. I've left a lot of space in between them so I can interplant other things in there when we get to sort of January, February time. But for now, looking okay. Getting closed up now. So here we are with another harvest. I've been a bit poorly this week. I've got a bad infection in one side of my face, and starting with one of my teeth, I think, and spreading all over, like into my ear and my scalp and my cheek and jaw and everything. So I'm only just starting to be able to talk again, but I'm on the mend. But the result is I haven't been able to eat very much, and so we've done a bit of a smaller harvest than usual because we've got a bit of a backlog of stuff still to eat. Anyway, I'll do my best to get through this before I have to rest my mouth. So we've got a full head of celery there, some chard, still picking the chili peppers, onions from the store, potatoes from the store, and we actually haven't even started any of our potato tubs yet. So the harvest from the allotment beds was so big that yeah, I've just got like, I don't know, 30 odd tubs which I haven't even picked anything from yet. Carrots from the ground, spinach, colettes, more spinach, beetroot from the ground, oh yeah, beetroot from the store, red cabbage, leeks, tromboncino, more spinach, celery, just individual stems picked from the greenhouse plants just to keep them tidy. So obviously we don't need it because we've got this huge amount here. Asian greens, komatsuma, red pak choi, red sen pak choi rather, and colette leaves, carvalho nero, red curly kale and green curly kale. And I picked the first colette top, which is always a treat. I love this. These tops, Brussels sprout tops and colette tops are just wonderful, I think. hopefully as a test to see if I can bring the colettes on a little bit faster. Just a few radish and salad onions, and the first pick of the radicchio. Now, I'm not a big fan of radicchio, but it looks absolutely lovely in the salads, and you'll see that in a second. And I just eat it with grapes because it's a bit too bitter for me. So salad rocket and garlic from the store, and the salad bases. So I'm just going to make up those salad bases now so you see the final result. And I'm done. My name's Steve. This is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel, and I'll see you soon.